Good morning on this Sunday, July 7th. Here's a look at our top stories on the Georgia gang. The city of Atlanta expands its smoking ban to include just about everywhere. The Department of Audit says the Georgia DOT has some explaining to do, and new details revealed on the plans to revamp underground Atlanta. Former City Council President Kathy Woolard is here filling in for Theron along with Alexis and Phil. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
An all-out smoking ban in the city of Atlanta awaits the mayor's signature. If Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms gives the final okay, you'll no longer be able to smoke or vape inside public places like restaurants and Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport.
I've been asking myself, why is it that the people in our community of musicians are so sick? And years later, we find out it was basically because we were in the clubs.
It was an afternoon filled with public opinions, many for the expansion of the smoking ban. There are exclusions, including vehicles, private homes, cigar bars, private clubs, and vape stores. Travelers who want to smoke at Hartsfield-Jackson will now have to head outside of the security areas, even when they have connecting flights. Some city restaurant owners have concerns this will be a hard hit for business. State law already outlaws smoking in restaurants that allow people under the age of 18.
We actually have less than 50 restaurants that allow smoking on their premises. It is obvious that that customers have voted with their feet. They go to restaurants where smoking is permitted because they want to smoke there.
Now, if the mayor signs the expansion of the smoking ban, it would take effect in January of 2020. And Phil, although it sends the right message, you think it's a little bit of an overreach?
I do think it's an overreach. I think that there's a couple points to be made. Number one, I agree with Karen Bremer that we saw in the video with the Georgia Restaurant Association that there are actually restaurants in Atlanta that have gone to a lot of expense to have the air systems that pump out the smoke. And these owners say, look, everybody knows there's smoking here. You don't have to come and go to all the other hundreds of restaurants around Atlanta that you want to. I think with the airport, I think that is really problematic to do away with smoking. If you saw the report, you have to go outside of security to smoke. And I think if you want to be the #1 airport in America or the world, you might have some people who are smoking addicts to go to other airports rather than Atlanta. I'm a non-smoker. I'm sympathetic with all of this, but I do think the state law was probably the best thing. They did that several years ago, where you can't have people under 18 smoking, but I wish they'd left it just the way it was.
Kathy, what do you think about that? I mean, there is or was that smoking room in the airport. It was kind of like, oh, there's all the smokers, and you know, it's kind of like they were in this cage type atmosphere because it was almost like shaming them. What do you think about this?
I think it's great. You know, when I was on the city council now 15 years ago, we had this same discussion. So it's been a long time coming. It's not like it hasn't been vetted. To your point, Phil, yes, customers can decide not to come there, but workers can't. People who have jobs, you know, are going to be exposed to that environment. I suppose you could say they could go work in another restaurant, and that could well be true, but maybe it's not, right? You know, you want to make sure that everybody's healthy, and there's really no reason to allow smoking in a restaurant. Secondly, at the airport, most major airports now here and around the world don't have smoking areas. The room in, you know, at the Atlanta airport, it was kind of awful to walk by and look people sitting in that hazy room coming out. But the toxins from the smoke leak out. There's no fail-safe way to do this, and really we all know the hazards of smoking, and it's about time. Quite frankly, I think it'll get implemented, and I think it will be not very much drama.
Alexis, if memory serves me right, I think it was the Vortex recently that stopped allowing, or start allowing kids so that they had to ban smoking. Do you think it should be left up to kind of private enterprise? Obviously, we're talking about Hartsfield, that's different, but what about the restaurants?
But if you're open to the public for business, you have to look at the public good and the public welfare, and that is no smoking, which I agree with, that ordinance. And Matt Westmoreland is to be congratulated for pushing it through.
It's a legal product, though. How far does the hand of government go with legal products, and how far do you have as a property owner the right to stipulate what's going on in your, in this case, a restaurant? or a
But
nightclub.
it's a legal product, but it does affect other people.
Yeah, that's the whole
I
point.
know it. Oh, I know it. But that's
that's
your
the
choice.
debate.
It's called choice.
Well, I'd be happy if we made the product illegal. You
Well,
know,
I know you would.
There's really no upside to smoking cigarettes.
And vaping as well,
and
right?
so I think, I think that's really the discussion to be had, is why are we even permitting
All right,
this
we'll stay
toxins?
with the City of Atlanta because the City of Atlanta's head of HR has resigned. Marion Woods is accused of creating a toxic work environment. But now there is kind of a catch here. She has resigned, but according to the AJC, it looks like she's staying on possibly 3 more months to finish projects already underway. Kathy, you were City Council President. What do you make of this? I mean, this is the head of HR creating allegedly a toxic work environment.
Well, I think if she's going to be fired, she needs to be fired. If she's not fired, then she's not fired. But I think, we've seen in the previous administration and in this administration, people getting in trouble, for reasons that they should be fired or should resign, and then somehow having contracts that last longer than the period of time that they're at work. And that's ridiculous. That's not a good way to steward taxpayer money, and it certainly sends the wrong message to other employees at the City of Atlanta about, how well people are being taken care of or not, whether it's justified or not.
Alexis, should she
Well,
stay on?
I don't know the details of the situation. She said she was doing projects, and now the spokesman for the mayor did not say that the mayor agreed to that notion that she should stay on. I think the spokesman said the mayor said she's staying on long enough to make this transition. She didn't give a specific time or not. So, but I think, if somebody's not, especially the head of HR,
Right, I think that's the point.
misbehaving and creating a bad environment, then they really do need to go immediately.
Phil, you want to weigh in on this?
No, I agree with both of you. I think that it's very odd that she's staying on for 3 months, but she's already resigned.
Right. All right, well, sticking with the City of Atlanta, Mayor Kasim Reed's former press secretary, Jenna Garland, declined a plea deal on misdemeanor charges of violating the Open Records Act. I think a lot of members of the media would not mind seeing this go to trial because it would definitely give you a behind-the-scenes look of just how hard it was to get information from this administration. Kathy, you followed this closely. You ran for mayor. What did you think when you read some of these texts that said, stall the reporters as much as possible, don't give over the information that they're requesting? I mean, to me as a journalist, it was outrageous.
It was outrageous. The law is very, very clear, and people who are in public office serve the people. It is not acceptable, and we see it all the time. It's not just the City of Atlanta. You see it all the way up, to this president who, are not transparent and open about government documents, and they should be.
Obviously, it's a misdemeanor, Phil, so she's probably not going to face any jail time. But what do you think? I mean, should she take the plea deal or a plea deal, or should she let this go to trial?
I would have taken the plea deal because I think she will be fined and found guilty from what I read. Now, obviously, I don't have both sides of the story, but I do think what was happening was that she was trying to delay any information on then Mayor Reed and then Mayor Reed's brother. And of course, there was a federal corruption investigation going on at the time, so that makes it even worse. So yeah, we need to have transparency. I think that's a cheap shot you took at the Trump administration. Even the National Press Club and the White House Correspondents Association said that Barack Obama's administration actually was far worse than the Trump administration. Trump, you get more information than you ever want to know with regard to
Yeah, but you don't get real information.
That's not true, Phil.
Well, Alexis, you come from the journalism world. I mean, I remember sitting in interviews, and Jenna Garland was there, and I would be interviewing members of the city administration, and she would say, can't ask that question, or that's enough, Lori. And it's just, that's not the way to handle the media.
Not at all, not at all. And I think that is a bad mistake that she made. And if she didn't want to do the job, she shouldn't have done it. She should have quit the job. Because if the mayor doesn't want to disclose, then she's following his orders and not looking out for the interests of the people.
And you're making a good point that I think she was told to do that.
It came from the top down, without a doubt.
Just like in the Trump administration.
I had to throw that in there.
Your Trump hatred is getting to you today.
The Georgia Department of Audits wants the state DOT to come up with a better way to justify spending your tax dollars. That's coming up.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
The Georgia Department of Audits says while the Georgia DOT has made some strides when it comes to the selection of projects, they need to do a better job of explaining why they are moving forward with their decisions. Now, Phil, they're saying that, they did make some progress, but they really have to justify why they choose the projects that they do and why the money goes to the projects. Now, if you look, obviously, like Georgia 400 and 285, that's an obvious project that needs work. I don't think anybody would argue that the I-75 toll lanes, were a mistake, because that has really alleviated some traffic. But this goes a little bit further than that.
Well, I think you've summed it up well. I made several calls to experts in the field, and one in particular was State Senator Brandon Beach, who, of course, is the chairman of the Transportation Committee, and he says that the audit is too much too far. There are priority schedules, and there's some flaws, he says, in that article that was in the AJC the other day. I think there's another side to this story. I think it was too harsh on the DOT. To your point, there has been some very extensive planning. As we all know, we have to go 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. I'm sure some of the audit may be correct, but I think the final story has to be written.
Okay. Kathy, what do you think? I mean, we're talking about major dollars, and this is an interest that really impacts everybody, because you're talking about traffic congestion.
Yeah, it's a huge deal, and I'm glad to see the audit, because I see the same problems with MARTA and their priority list for the spending of the transportation dollars that they're getting. You can create any criteria you want that will tell you the story that you want in terms of what kind of projects that will be important. But what needs to happen is that there needs to be a comprehensive plan for the whole state and here in the city of Atlanta, and then have it in a way that people can measure what the traffic relief is going to be. More lanes on 285, I don't think, are going to be the things that actually solve the long-term problem for the city of Atlanta, and those things need to be explored.
Is it tough? I mean, obviously coming up with any type of list is political. We've seen that with the old T-SPLOST. We've seen this, with MARTA, as Kathy had mentioned. So what is the solution? Is it, a set type of criteria? Because I think in the article it said that really won't matter, because you can't really do a cost-benefit analysis of the dollars necessarily that would come out to the way that, some people would want.
Yeah, I think it's just the luck of the draw, really. I mean, you have to, the politics is not going to come out of it. I mean, decisions are going to have to be made, but the hope is that you will have good people who will make those decisions and think about the larger community as opposed to their own little fiefdom or kingdom, and also their friends who might get the contract. So.
Well, in defense of the state DOT too, I mean, there's studies done all the time. I know the State Road and Toll Authority does studies all the time. They coordinate. So that's where I think that the audit misses some of that.
And also the Department of Transportation needs to be broadened, perhaps, so that it includes discussions about public transportation and not just roads.
All right, well, moving on. The Kemp administration has given state agencies a holiday when it comes to insurance premium payments, saying that them almost $250,000. But many state employees, including teachers, are really worried that this could ultimately end up leading to higher insurance costs and less coverage for them. Kathy, it's a little complicated, but they've kind of seen this before when the recession hit.
Yeah, well, last time they did this, they actually ended up getting in arrears, and people had to pay more to make up the difference. And so, there's no free money here, right? If you give money back, there's going to be a shortfall somewhere, sometime, and so we'll see. But I think that giving away money, in things that have regular payments is something that we need to look very closely at.
And Phil, Governor Kemp's administration said this was really to help boost the financial picture of the state. Is this okay to do?
I think it's a good shot. I know there are pitfalls. I don't disagree with that, but I know it's a cliche, but I think we will have to wait and see. I think the heart's in the right place, and it could work.
The heart's not in the right place. I mean, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's exactly what they're doing. They're taking that money out to make the other pot look better than it would if they didn't have that extra money in there. So.
And I think it depends on what the state agencies do with the money. I know Gwinnett County Schools is giving teachers a $300 pay raise, but what are the other state agencies doing?
That's the right answer. It's the priorities.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, well, the state's Hands-Free Driving Act is a year old, and state law enforcement has written 25,000 tickets. That's not including local agencies. The numbers of fatalities and crashes are down. The law is making us all better, but there are plenty of drivers in violation, which we probably see every single day. Now, less crashes, more traffic tickets being written, does that mean our insurance premiums are going to go down in Georgia?
Not likely.
Probably depends on the new insurance commissioner.
How about that? How about that?
Good point. Good point. But 25,000 tickets. I mean, they're making strides. We saw the construction workers that were the officers dressed up as construction workers to try to catch people.
Right. I think it's had some limited good effect, and of course, the less accidents. That's what insurance companies look at when they set the rates.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll be following
them.
them.
Right. And also, we'll see what happens with the insurance revenue that comes from those tickets. If it's a good revenue, they'll keep doing it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Senator
like
Johnny.
Speeding tickets?
Yeah, exactly.
This is interesting. Senator Johnny Isakson is pushing once again to limit the speed limits for tractor-trailer drivers by using electronic devices already on most of the vehicles. Now, he wants that limit to be 65 miles per hour. This is an issue that I covered years ago as a reporter, and it's still not law, it's still not policy. Phil, is this overreach? Because if you travel to Europe, not only is there a speed limit for these tractor-trailer drivers, they're also only allowed on the right side, on the right lanes. There's no passing that we see on 285, on I-16. You feel a lot safer over there.
I agree, and safety should be paramount here. I do like truck-only lanes. However, if you in Iowa, you'd like to go maybe more than 65 miles per hour if you got a straight shot when no one's around. So I think maybe for urban areas, you might want to do this at 65. Certainly in metro Atlanta, that would be a good thing in other urban areas. It's something that the senator, it's actually a bipartisan bill that's picking up steam, but I think it still needs some work on.
Kathy?
Well, apparently they've been working on it for years.
They
so
have.
we'll see they get it right. Yeah.
About 15
2011.
years, but I think they finally are getting it into final shape from what I'm told.
Well, I hope so, because I tell you, 285 just gets crazier and crazier every day.
Amen.
And, somebody's got to put the truck somewhere.
Especially on I-16 too, with all the trucks coming from the port. So, well, coming up, new plans are announced for Underground Atlanta. We'll discuss straight ahead.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Underground Atlanta back in the news. The Atlanta Business Chronicle is reporting the developer is looking at a $450 million investment, a hotel with robots, a $38 million affordable housing project, and a new nightclub. Kathy, could these ideas work? And could we really see affordable housing there?
Well, $38 million for affordable housing doesn't buy you a lot of housing, but I'm glad they're doing it. I think the thing that I am interested in knowing is how far afield has this gone from what the original plans were, because if you recall, the city of Atlanta conceded a whole bunch of public right-of-way to this developer based on some very, very specific plans. These don't seem to be those plans, and I really think the city needs to have a clawback for when developers don't do what they say they're going to do. We do a lot of things that are contingent on things happening, and then the project comes around and those things don't happen.
It seems like there's no accountability. If they promise affordable housing and affordable housing doesn't come through, what happens? Nothing in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Well, you're making good points. I'll just add one more. You've heard me say it, I'll say it again. In that area, we've got a crime problem. And it's still being addressed. I'm in favor of some of the wonderful developments that are going on in Atlanta and downtown Atlanta, but when I talk to cops, they say, boy, I tell you, if you're going to have something like that down there, we've got to have more people and we've got to clean it up.
And there's an age-long issue with the homeless population too.
That's what I was going to say. It's called the south of downtown Sodo or something. South of downtown needs to be a master plan for development for that area as well, not just underground Atlanta, because a lot of those buildings are vacant right now.
Well, you're right. You're right. And when it comes to the homeless people, I think everybody's sympathetic, but we've got to either enforce the ordinance, which some lawyers say is unconstitutional, and if it is, get a new ordinance so the police can actually get these people out of these areas, and some of them are a danger to public safety.
Kathy, what do you do? I mean,
well,
there's no
getting
easy
people
solution.
out of an area
Right.
is sort of a halfway solution, right? People need to go somewhere. People have a right to exist.
Well, and we have
there's a real
we have
cluster,
places for them.
and they're right there. They are
But
in
we
south
can't
of
have
downtown.
them. We can't have them on the sidewalks, which you see. You
Right.
can't have aggressive panhandling, which occurs.
But in that part of town, south of downtown, there is a large cluster of social service agencies that were designed to be the place for those people to be, and the populations have overwhelmed that.
It's funny, during the Super Bowl, everybody was gone.
Yeah, well,
It can be done.
Yeah,
but still have to go somewhere.
I understand, and we have places where they can go.
No, actually, we don't.
Well, we'll move on.
do.
not enough places. And there needs to be some support for people who need help and
Everybody
assistance.
agrees with that.
Well, we're going to move on to the state news. Several new laws took effect July 1st, including the medical marijuana cultivation law. But it could be a long time before patients are allowed to purchase any here in Georgia. This is quite a process, Kathy, going forward. I mean, they have to appoint a committee. The committee members have to find, the right folks who will actually handle licensing and all of that.
Yeah, there's some really interesting things going on around the country. For example, many places that have legalized marijuana, either just for medicine or recreational use, there have been some laws put into place to make sure people who have gone to jail for selling marijuana actually get some of the benefit of the expansion of the new laws. So that's sort of an interesting thing. I also want to see in the limited number, I think it's 6 or 7 licenses that are going to happen, how many of those licenses are going to go to former state legislators who were part of the contingent of people who got us to this point?
And how many will go to Georgia companies, right?
Yep.
Georgia-based companies.
Yep.
Phil, you wanted to mention some other new laws taking effect.
I did. I think sometimes the Republicans get short shrift when it comes to health care reforms and legislation, and I did see one that was brought to my attention by Senator Kate Kirkpatrick of Marietta, and this is SB 18. What is that? It allows doctors to provide health care to patients through a direct primary agreement. What does that mean? That means you don't have to go through the insurance regulations that we worry about. It's a great thing. The Republicans have had a great agenda. They still have a good agenda, and I just want to give a shout out to that.
All right. Well, here's a fun story. The University System of Georgia is pitching a Fit over Fitbits. It seems an offer for free Fitbits to system employees also ended up being forwarded to thousands of students. And now the University System is telling those students, if you don't pay for the Fitbit, you must return it or else expect to hear from a collection agency. Wow. I mean,
What a dumb mistake.
I mean, obviously the parameters were not put in place to control this.
Right.
So whose problem is it, Phil?
Let them keep it. You just summed it up. I mean, it's not the problem of the people that receive them. It was, to your quote, a dumb mistake.
It was a dumb mistake. And so maybe Fitbit will just let them keep them. Maybe they can write it off, right?
Well, I have a Fitbit. I paid for mine. I did not benefit
I was looking
under
at
the
that,
system.
and
That's
I want
right.
you to admit right now
Yeah.
that this is
No,
not
this
illegal.
predates that
Okay.
problem.
But isn't this the way we could teach those kids, nothing is free?
Nothing is free, and if it doesn't have your name on it, it's still not right.
All right, well, we're going to come back with winners and losers. Stay tuned.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Phil, we're going to start with you first.
Well, thank you, Lori. I want to start as a winner with Bernie Marcus, the great Atlanta philanthropist. He's been in the news lately. I can't recite everything he's done. You think of the aquarium, probably right off.
The Marcus Heart Institute.
The Heart
Autism
Institute,
Center.
the Autism Center.
list
We
is
could
on
go
and
on and on. I think he's given away $2 billion in the course of his career. Amazing. And he's going to keep doing it, he says. That's great. I think all of us want to have this winner, and that is Corey. Her nickname is Coco Goff, and she is the amazing 15-year-old that upset Venus at Wimbledon. And I was amazed at this. They said that her serve was 122 miles per hour.
Wow, just like yours.
I know it. In my prime, of course. But anyhow, it was an amazing thing. And speaking of sports, the Atlanta Braves, I saw where Walter Banks, we all know Walter, the usher, he's been usher there for 54 years. He turned 80 the other day and is loving his job.
Yes. All right, Alexis.
Okay, I'm going to salute the Peachtree Road Race. It marks its 50th anniversary this year, and it is now the largest 10K in the world, and it really draws people. I ran it once.
Did you?
Back in 1979. And it was the last year they had the race without, you had to have a time of 60 minutes or less to get a t-shirt.
Oh yeah, they don't use that
They don't
anymore.
use that anymore, so I was very angry, so I
goodness.
never ran again. And then also I want to salute the Atlanta History Center. They bought at auction a flag that belonged to the 127th United States Colored Troops, which were part of the Civil War battle, and they have that to go with their wonderful cyclorama now and the rest of their Civil War collection.
All right, Kathy.
Well, I'm struggling a little bit on this, but this past week marked the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots in New York City that launched the modern gay rights movement. Most cities celebrate Gay Pride last week. We don't do that here because it's too bloody hot, and I applaud the fact that we do it in October, but we have a little extra fun at the end of June.
All right, thank you. Well, my winner, of course, is the U.S. women's national team. A huge victory over England with a score of 2-1. Shall we drink some tea like Alex Morgan? On to the final World Cup. Also, prayers, of course, going out to State Senator Greg Kirk, who has announced he is battling cancer. And congrats to former Georgia Gang panelist Martha Zoller, who is back on the airwaves at WDUN. So congrats, Martha. Hope to see you soon. And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again next week.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.